So I would like to perhaps discuss and talk about other elements of the government's program and why we are highly confident of reaching the economic growth rate of 8% and above. So the 8% is a target, but I believe that 8% we can surpass the 8% target, and I think that in the time allotted to me, I'll be able to explain why we feel highly confident. I think Pak Rosan has talked about the downstreaming projects, the various projects that we believe will propel Indonesia's economic growth. There'll be manufacturing, value added to the different commodities that we have. We have nickel, we have copper, we have bauxite, and various other things. Even coal, there'll be downstreaming of coal assets in the form of syngas, which can also produce LNG. I think I will be attending a presentation on how we'll be able to increase our resources of LNG from syngas and from coal. We have also the possibility of producing LPG from DME, from also coal assets. These are all the various things that we want to do to promote value-added processes and to have what we call the downstreaming of Indonesia's commodities. There are various other elements which will propel Indonesia's growth. One is the free meal program, with which the government intends to provide decent meals, healthy meals, to 82 million of our citizens. The 82 million of our citizens comprises three categories. The first is school children, which are about 48 million. The second category is preschool children, toddlers, what we say is PAUD, ya, PAUD, PAUD, pendidikan anak usia dini, ya, kalau tidak salah. And then we have the third category is about 4.3 million children or babies still in their mother's womb. Because the government and Prabowo has already received a lot of advice, medical and nutritional advice, which says that it's very important for babies, unborn babies, yet to be born, to receive sustenance, gizi, what we call sustenance gizi, nutrition, in the first 9 months before their birth. Altogether, there's about 82 million people who the government wants to provide decent meals. However, I want to say also, there is no element of compulsion. Nobody is going to be forced to eat if they don't want to eat. You know, there are Indonesian people who are obese. There are children who are obese from rich families. There's going to be no act of compulsion to force people. It is only on a voluntary basis. And this is because the government, a few years ago, government had very disturbing statistics. And one disturbing statistic was that of the 48 million school children who go to school every day, 41% go to school with an empty stomach, on an empty stomach. 41% of Indonesia's children go to school every day without eating breakfast. And that's because of poverty. The parents cannot afford to provide their children with enough food to eat as breakfast. 18 million children. So this is one of the motivators for Prabowo to introduce what we call the free meal program. I want to say there was a misnomer. A year ago, people were saying it's a free lunch program. It is not a free lunch program. It's a free meal program because one of the objectives is to provide the children food when they get to school. Children cannot go through 5 hours of school on an empty stomach. They just cannot be able to absorb the knowledge that is supposed to be imparted upon them during the school day. So it is a free meal program. Now, why do I mention this? Because the free meal program, when 82 million people are provided meals, this will be the driver of growth, one of the drivers of growth. You can imagine with 82 million eggs will be provided every day. 82 million cartons of milk, 82 million trays of food will be provided every day. That is going to be at steady state 82 million. And this will be a huge driver for growth. we're thinking about, Pak Rosan, I think altogether about between $25 to $35 billion at steady state, we hope to be within 2 years, able to, and the eggs will be procured locally, the vegetables will be procured locally, all the different elements. Perhaps in the first year or two, a lot of the milk will be imported from neighboring countries, primarily New Zealand and Australia, and some maybe from India. But this is going to be a driver of growth. We estimate it will increase our GDP between 1 to 1.5, perhaps even 2% a year. The second element of our growth program is a program which actually I am closely supervising on behalf of the government. This is what we call the perumahan sosial. This is going to be social housing, perumahan rakyat. And this is because there are, according to government statistics, the latest statistic we have, Pak Rosan, from BPS, is that there are 15 million families which are in the waiting list for a decent house. 15 million, both in the rural areas as well as in the urban areas. 15 million families waiting for decent housing. In the previous administration, the maximum which was achieved was about 260,000. Sometimes it was 180,000, more often 200 to 220,000 a year. At that rate, it would take 75 years, 70 years, to be able to provide a decent home for our people. Besides the 50 million families, there are 27 million families living in the rural areas who are living in substandard dwellings, substandard houses. Mostly living in huts, what we would call huts. Most of them with no running water, most of them with earthen floors, floors which are basically of earth, with no clean water, and therefore a problem that we have is that this, I would say, uninhabitable, basically, milieu, or environment for us, is a major cause of what is a major problem in Indonesia, and the major problem is stunting. Stunting is where is a condition where children's development, especially on the brain development, is actually impaired because of a lack of nutrition, especially protein. As of the latest number, which was last year, the government estimates that about 25% of Indonesian children suffer from stunting, 25%. So, when we talk about development, many economic experts talk about, the demographic bonus. The average age of Indonesian people is 29 years old. That's a great asset. We don't have the problem that Korea has, an aging population. We have a young population. The problem is that when we have a young population, but 25% suffer from stunting, that becomes not an asset, it becomes a gross liability. We would have to support 25% of people who cannot basically function properly. So instead of a vigorous workforce, we have a workforce of 25%, a quarter of the workforce being people who cannot work properly, who cannot take orders, who cannot instructions, who cannot work as factory workers, who cannot work as soldiers, who cannot work as civil servants, and that becomes a great liability. So therefore, the government has to put a priority on correcting, and eventually we want to eliminate stunting. Now this has a very positive effect. This will have a very positive effect on economic growth. Now, the housing program that we have in mind is to provide housing for the 15 million in the waiting list, and eventually 27 million who live in substandard housing. So the challenge is to provide decent housing for about 40 million households. This is a major problem, but an opportunity to drive growth. The housing sector has 185 linkages to the rest of the economy. We just think about it. Housing needs cement, it needs steel, it needs electricity, it needs wiring, it needs lamps, it needs, toiletry, it needs kitchen equipment, it needs stoves, it needs refrigerators. Most people want to have a television. Maybe some homes want to have 2 television sets. This will be a major driver for growth. 185 linkages. The furniture industry will major recipient, major beneficiary. We can think about if one family in Indonesia is about 5 people, mother, father, and 3 children, a house, an apartment would need at least 4 to 5 beds. So if we were to, the target is to do 3 million times 4 to 5, we would need every year 12 to 15 million beds. This will be a major, major driver for the furniture industry. So you can deduce what the benefits will be. So we believe at steady state, which is to be about 3 million apartments and homes every year, and a lot of this will be renovation, because many of the people in the rural areas actually own their piece of land. Then we would be providing renovation loans. The state banks, the 4 himbara, what we call the himbara banks, will be incentivized to provide homes and loans and mortgages for 3 million families every year. And we're talking about increasing the tenor from 15 to 20 years. Perhaps DBS may be interested, maybe not, but this is the challenge, and we believe we have the liquidity. We have the liquidity to finance this program without foreign investments. We would welcome foreign investments, but we don't want to be totally dependent on foreign investments for our housing program. Foreign investors from Singapore and elsewhere will be welcome to join this program, but the government believes, we believe, that we have enough liquidity. We've made some calculations in the last 7, 8 months. We believe we have the liquidity to be able to finance, if not all, most of this program from internal resources. The government's also willing to provide. I had a meeting with Menteri Keuangan, the Kementerian Keuangan this morning, the Minister of Finance. The Ministry of Finance is willing to issue what are called SDG bonds. These bonds, and we all know SDG stands for Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals set out by the UN. These are bonds designated SDG bonds, which will be issued to perhaps ESG funds and other funds to finance this program. So the Ministry of Finance is very keen to do this. There are quite a lot of potential borrowers who are willing to do this as part of the ESG, the S part of the ESG, which is the social aspects of ESG funding. So we believe this housing program will be able to increase growth by 1 to 2%. 1 to 2%. So between the free meal program and the housing program, we believe we can get past 8% economic growth. The government's also very keen to provide affordable internet connectivity to Indonesia's people. You know, we only have 15% internet penetration. 15% penetration compared to Malaysia, I think 60%. I don't know, Singapore, I think it's closer to 90%, is it? Or maybe more, close to 100% internet connectivity. Malaysia, 60%. Indonesia, we have 15%. Now, according to consultancies like McKinsey and even the World Bank, which also acknowledge that for every 10% of the Indonesian population which has access to internet connectivity to the internet at low affordable prices, will be able to increase economic growth between 0.7% to 1.3%. This is the government goal. I met with Ibu Mutia last week to advance this goal. We should be able to get at least 1% a year growth from internet connectivity. And there, we believe we can already reach 9%. And then with the programs that under the purview of Pak Rosan, which is the downstreaming of our commodities, we believe we can get another 1% growth by downstreaming nickel, downstreaming copper, downstreaming bauxite, downstreaming all the other things that we have, another 1%. So we believe we have the programs already launched to be able to reach at least over 8%. Now, a program which you may not have heard about but I've actually been entrusted by our president to supervise this program. This program is a program to introduce digital taxation to Indonesia.